Boom, bitches! So today, Spirit cannot be corporeal. He has lost his privileges.
Mm-hmm.
He requires massive amounts of the electricity, and he will only sippy from the computer. Nothing else is sippyable. I've tried to talk him out of it. I have tried. Isn't that right? You have to have the electricity come from the computer for the sippy.
Mm-hmm. I need the sippy the internet.
And if he can't sippy from the internet, then he can't be physical. But he is still here. He is just invisible and in the void.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fine. It's fine.
Yes, disembodied spirit.
Disembodied spirit. Spirit no more.
Spirit no more.
But, Spirit is still here enough that he can try and wow us with his ability to read the content warning as soon as I post it. Come on, post.
I'm with V in the walls.
In the walls.
In the walls.
Alright, there we go. It is there. You can read it. Try to do it all in one breath. I dare you. Go.
This game includes graphic depictions of violence, torture, murder, domestic and child abuse, suicide, sexual assault, rape, psychological manipulation, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, and themes centered on religion, racism, bigotry, and other troubling topics. Salvage includes child abuse, bloodletting and drinking, murder, cannibalism, severed limbs, slavery, I breathed. Slavery, human trafficking, psychological manipulation, imprisonment resulting in death, suicide, murder of sex workers, and misogyny.
That is a lot of things.
I got most of the way through it before I breathed.
Yeah, you did. You got about as far as I usually get through before I breathe, so you're fine.
Oh, bucket, your internet is just like me, nowhere in sight.
Just gone. Also, we would let him sippy directly out of the router, but we tried that, and last time we did that, the internet went out for the entire block. It was just too much power.
Too much power.
Yeah, he sippy'd from the router directly, and everyone else lost all internet for like a whole day. So, just before people think we haven't thought of other ways for him to sippy the internet, we have. But he has to have it through a filter, through a sieve, through the computer, where he is getting limited amounts of the internet. But
limited amounts of the sippy.
Limited amounts of sippy. Anyway,
limited sippy.
Is game time.
Game time.
Game time. Inspect. Slot 20. Christ. The sound of blood streaming down the stairs echoed off the stone walls. Although I have begun growing numb to the house's otherworldly ornamentation, the sight of seemingly endless river of blood flowing down the spiral staircase sends a chill through me. Every step I go makes a splat noise. When I reach a window, I look out to see a churning reddish black fog.
Now this brings me back. You climbing these stairs alone, just like old times.
Morgana.
I waited so long for someone like you to show up. Someone with enough despair to resurrect
Despair!
It's Morgana, just Junko.
Do people want... I can give a genuine answer with as few spoilers as possible. Do people want a genuine answer?
Do people want the genuine answers?
I'm taking the silence as I'm allowed to give a genuine answer. So, no. Morgana is not just Junko, because Junko has absolutely no fucking reason to behave the way she does. But Morgana, she has reason.
Mm.
So, I'm not saying it excuses what she does, but at least there is a method to the madness.
I see.
Versus it just being sadism and madness. Also, I've got a question. We keep making comments about, Junko being up to shit. Does that count as breaking our spoiler rule, or is it fine just because we don't do it on Fridays?
We don't do it on Fridays, it's fine.
It's fine. Okay. That's all I wanted to know. Give her back.
But now I don't see it in you. I don't feel one bit of that intense hopelessness anymore.
Give her back!
And here I thought we were cut from the same cloth.
Morgana!
Yes, I'll give her back. If you can make it to me without losing yourself.
I will not give up. It doesn't matter what you do. Looking up, I can't see how far the stairs extend. It's just a gaping blackness, so I have no way of knowing for sure whether I'm getting any closer. Around and around, around and around, around and around. Beneath me, the river of blood traces the same path in reverse. I start to wonder if the staircase even does end. If I'm not just eternally retracing my steps. But I continue climbing regardless. It's all I can do, put one foot in front of the other, and hope that I make it to the top. Morgana? What is this place? What did you do to it?
What is it? Why, it's the mansion you lived in for a decade, of course.
You look at this and tell me it's the same house. What's with the blood everywhere? And the three shadows?
Now, my dear, no need to raise your voice. And you're being impolite, one question at a time.
Answer me!
What is this place? That's immaterial. Even if I were to give you an answer you found satisfying, what would that knowledge do for you? Your objective is to reach the top of these stairs and rescue Giselle. Nothing more, nothing less. Isn't that right? Or, by chance, have you taken an interest in me? Despite never once asking me about myself before.
Sorry. I didn't mean to smack something.
Just making so much noise over there. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle,
Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. My gut tells me that without knowing what this place is, without even the briefest glimpse at its nature. Are you okay?
Sorry, yeah, I popped a bubble in
Did
my
your
neck.
body go shuffle, shuffle?
My body went shuffle, shuffle.
One more body. I was given a free promotional item in a shop and the box is empty.
Wow. That's funny.
Look at that.
Empty.
That's so funny. I'm not even mad. Like, it was just a free little promotional item and I was like, oh, I can't wait to unbox it. And I opened it up and it's empty. That's what all the shuffle shuffle was, by the way.
But
What the fuck did you do?
blood, murder, death.
So, it's worth noting that you guys can't see him, but I can because, I have special demon eyes. I can see spirits like that. He was sipping on a ghost drink, and he now looks like he ate out someone on their period.
Raha.
He is covered in... what, cherry? He's covered in cherries. What is happening? I don't know. I won't be able to safely get her back. Without knowing what I'm up against, I don't stand a chance. Please tell me about this mansion, Morgana. About yourself. What are you, Morgana? Yeah, I don't know what the fuck's happening. I stopped questioning it long ago. I'm just like, what happens, what happens. Is fine.
I managed to do that, but not get any on the floor.
I am very proud of you because I was gonna cry. It's like, I don't care if only my fucking demon eyes can see it and nobody else could, I would still cry. It's because I have special eyes.
I mean, special eyes.
My brand.
Your brand. Oh, I mean, that definitely woke me up if I was sleepy. Oh, that was chilly.
Are you okay?
I am okay. I am just afraid to put the straw in my mouth because, you know, metal straw plus ticks equal bad times.
Why didn't you just use one of your plastic straws from printer?
Because I didn't think that through.
You've got one right there.
Do I? This one?
Yeah. Okay, sorry. He is back. I know that you guys did not see him leave. You did not see him return, but he is back. He is here. But yeah, he looked like he had some very interesting kinks for a second there. He actually looked like he'd been punched in the stomach so hard that he vomited blood or something. Like, he was just covered.
Oops. Silly me. What was the context of this comment?
What are you, Morgana?
A witch.
No, that's not what I'm asking. Why do you have the powers that you do? What are you?
Yes, I get it. Humans feel the need to attach names to things and phenomena they don't understand. I understand that feeling very well. Which is why I'm sure you'll be rather disappointed when I reveal the truth.
What do you mean?
What I mean is, I'm an ordinary human.
That's not possible. You expect me to believe a human created this illusion?
Then are you saying I'm a magician or a wizard like you might see in a fairy tale?
I would believe that over you being human.
Think back then, would you? Recall our time together. Did I ever once use magic? Did I control fire or wind? Did I create illusions? No, I did none of that. Because I could not. To you, when you were alive, I suppose you could say, I was not but a simple ghost.
Simple. 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 I'm sure she doesn't mean anything by it. I'm sure she's not insulting you.
Simple.
I mean, you did just spit up smoothie all over yourself.
And then even spit it up, I tipped the cup so far back that it just plopped down on my face.
You're about to lose your smoothie privileges.
What privileges do I have left?
Simple.
Sample.
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 Oh, sample. Wait, Morgana was sample the whole time? What?
Sample.
Sample. Sample, why?
A rather mischievous but otherwise powerless spirit. Can't believe she's called me powerless now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was nothing more to those three men either. The witch Morgana was never anything but a wretched phantom haunting this old house.
But then, how do you explain this?
Michael, my dear, we're not the same beings we once were. We're different than we were in the realm of light, the era of the living.
Yeah, she's spirit now. What? She's sample. She's spirit. Next, she's gonna be
I
cryptic.
mean, right now we look the same. Can't see either of us. But give it time. I'm sure that will change.
No offense to Morgana, but I think you're way prettier.
Aw, thank you.
But you know, I am a biased opinion, just a little bit.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little tiny bit.
You know, I'm just biased and, you know, blinded by the fact that I want to stick my face between your legs, but, you know, that's neither here nor there because you don't have any legs right now.
Oopsies.
I have to go like an entire week without because you can't get the sippy.
I can't get the sippy.
I am so sad.
No
wiggies.
No wiggies. You figured that much out though, haven't you? That you're already dead.
Yes, I know. I know I couldn't possibly be alive.
Yet still you view this world through the lens of the living. You make no effort to see it as the land of the dead. Tell me, why would you think that the realm of the living and the dead are the same?
Though the worlds behind each door were so vibrant, the mansion itself never had any color. They were the memories of the past, the land of the living, of times forever lost to us.
Our lives have already come to an end, my dear. Every last soul within these walls is dead. This is the world that lies beyond the end. It is my world. This is the afterlife. Why get caught up in the minutiae? None of us have a future, so what reason is there for you to desperately obsess over taking Giselle back? Just like you, she's long since dead. She's a walking corpse.
But does she have a party?
Does she have parties?
I want to know, does Giselle have parties? This is an important question.
We must know.
It's nothing I didn't already know, but hearing her say it, it's like a kick to the gut. Dead or alive, she still lives on within this house, and my spirit found its way back too. Why then should I not wish for her to have a future? No matter what form it may take. No matter if my choices erase her from this world entirely. Having seen what lies beyond the door to her heart, what happened in all those hundreds of years, I could never let her remain here with you. Trapped in this world bereft of light, drifting aimlessly for all eternity.
So determined you feel the need to raise your voice. But you're not going to budge on that point, I see.
I ask you this again, Morgana. Please tell me about yourself. How did you become a witch? How did you end up attached to this house? I want to hear your story.
You honestly want to know about me?
I do now, yes.
But not for me. For her, right? Don't be shy now. It's the truth, isn't it? Besides, if you did say it was for me, not her, I might die of laughter. As you wish. You've seen many tales of people's lives since arriving here, and now you shall see mine. Though I ask you this, will you writhe in despair with me? Will you endure maddening agony for me? Will you know pain enough to make you howl? Will you face despair again and again and again?
As I said before, if that's what you want from me.
Let me tell you something though, my dear. It will not be as easy to watch as you imagine. Now that you've reclaimed yourself, you'll be able to feel all my pain as if it were your own, to resonate with it.
Resonate with it?
You no longer have your little guardian with you either.
One second. I was taking a big sippy.
Big sippy.
My guardian, she was always protecting me.
You'll have a wonderful time, I'm sure. See, that's what I did when it went.
Yeah, but see, I did it when my cup's basically empty.
Yeah, I was a bit of an idiot when I did it. It's a tale that could have only taken place in the era of miracles and spirituality. Wondrous and weird, senseless and stupid. Hopelessly tragic. Will you watch it with me?
Not to give a spoiler, but I think I disagree with Morgana. I think her story could have happened in any era, because even after you got past the eras of fragrant spirituality, you ended up with the televangelists and stuff of today that are always trying to do their crackpot schemes, no matter who they hurt, to try and make as much money as possible. So, surely, if they can succeed doing what they do, then whatever happens to her probably would have been possible in a different age.
Yeah.
But that's just because I don't exactly have a lot of hope for certain aspects of humanity. Not all aspects, but certain aspects.
Certain.
As soon as the final word leaves her mouth, I'm engulfed in darkness, not even given any moment to brace myself. The tower stairs crumble beneath me. My feet have nowhere to go. As I'm being battered by the roaring blood river, my consciousness melds with another. I saw the nowhere to go, and my brain instantly did the "You're a pillow, you have nowhere to go" thing that Jay says in Big Mouth.
Yeah.
And like I was trying so hard not to just imitate the way Jay says that. I carry within me the child of God. This will be Morgana narrating, I believe.
That is where it all began. The words of one foolish woman determined the course of my entire life. Before I was even born, my fate was decided. Did her claim come from faith? Was it her way of escaping reality? Did she do it for money? Or fame? I don't know.
I have been visited by an angel of the Lord.
The village where she lived had suffered from years of poor harvest. It had been months since the last rain, and all the villagers prayed desperately to be blessed with succor.
I am with child, though I have known no man.
So proclaimed the pregnant woman in the midst of the drought. And on the day of my birth, the very moment I let out my first cry, a heavy rain fell down upon the village. The storm quenched the parched earth, nourishing the crops and saving the village. The villagers were astounded, for they had thought the drought would never end. As plump drops of rain poured down upon the village, they gathered around newborn me in exultation.
Ah, she's the child of God.
Perhaps there would be more wonder in claiming I had magical powers. Perhaps it would make a better story if I were to say there were higher forces involved. But all these years later, here is what I truly think. It was nothing more than a fluke, an improbable stroke of luck, an unbelievably fortunate accident for my mother and the village, and an indescribably unfortunate accident for myself. I am with child, though I have known no man. As if that's even possible. Maybe she had fooled around with a man who had gone and abandoned her, and she spouted those lies to convince herself it had never happened. None of the village men made any claim to be my father. Perhaps he was someone else's husband, and as such he couldn't reveal himself, as adultery is a sin in the eyes of God. The girl they were praising as the child of God was indeed not more than the ordinary daughter of a wretched woman. At the time, though, I thought differently. I believed my mother's words, convinced I was a saint, and it gave me a sense of duty, purpose rather than superiority. As the daughter of God, I believed it was my responsibility to help anyone in need. So every day I prayed. I asked my Father what I could do, what I was meant to do. Not everyone is equally good, however. There will always be someone who lends their ear to the devil's whispers. One man claimed I was the daughter of a charlatan. He shouted for all to hear, "If you really are the child of God, then perform a miracle for us." Could he have been any more unreasonable? Miracles are neither magic nor parlor tricks. They are realized through the power of faith. A lowly villager has no place demanding God prove his own divinity. It is the height of arrogance.
Are you enjoying another Spirit Talks the whole stream?
And I'm not even there for them to see me read.
No, they can't even see you read.
Can't even see me read. But the man refused to heed my words. So having no other choice, I contemplated what I could do to show him I was indeed a saint. And blood was the spark of my inspiration. Michael, the time when I lived and the time when you lived are not so different. Our views and beliefs about the world are very much the same, so you should understand that in our time, blood was seen as unclean. It was a dreadful thing, ridden with diseases, which is why we drained the blood from animals and purified the flesh before consuming it. But being a saint, my blood would have been different. Like the blood of the saints who came before me, mine would be blessed.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. I believed it would be able to cleanse people's impurities. For my demonstration, I chose an elderly woman afflicted with a terrible disease. She was on her deathbed and no one thought she would live for longer than another day or two. The woman was overjoyed when I came to visit her. Sincerely believing me to be a holy servant of the Lord, she gathered all the strength she could muster to climb from her bed and kiss my feet. I felt an intensely deep love for this woman. Placing my hands upon her cheeks, I said with all the kindness in my heart, "My beloved sister, partake of my blood." The woman agreed without a glimpse of hesitation, and so I pricked the tip of my finger with a knife and let the blood drip into her mouth. Within 3 days, her health had improved enough for her to get out of bed and assisted, seeing that no one in the village doubted my powers any longer. In fact, the man who had accused me of being the daughter of a charlatan was subsequently punished for his sins. He received much deserved retribution for challenging the daughter of God, for mocking her. But of course, being a saint, I forgave the man. He in turn repented and changed his ways, worshipping me as the true child of God. Now I'll be honest with you, I was ecstatic, utterly elated. I felt like I was on top of the world and I revelled in it. The villagers showered me with adulation. They revealed me, the daughter of God. Anyone who didn't was punished. And on top of that, my blood could cause miracles. Tell me, do you look down on me for feeling the way I did? The actual child of God would never let herself be consumed by such base emotions, would she? But if you would give me a chance, I would like to explain myself. I was but a young girl at the time, and to a child, her mother is the world. Anything she says is the absolute truth. So when my mother's claims so happened to coincide with the lucky miracle, my young mind was set in stone. I was a saint, my blood could heal the sick, and nothing would convince me otherwise. After all, I was but a girl of 6 years old. It is not my place to decide whether my blood truly had miraculous powers or not. If you think it did, then it did. And if you think it was all happenstance, then so it was. Miracles were brought about by faith, so the elderly woman who was healed was done so by the power of her own belief. Baseless hope and desire can, at times, make the otherwise impossible reality. You understand just how major a role religion played in our time, don't you, Michael? Especially as someone whose life was taken from him in the name of God.
Morgana! Spoilers! Spoilers, Morgana!
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 So would you like to try this? It's
Sure.
mint.
It is mint.
I'm giving him just a minute to recuperate from all his weeding.
I see.
It comes out more like cigarette smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like it?
Mm-hmm.
You want to hold on to it?
Sure.
It's nice, but I've had all the mint I can muster right now.
Nice. And you understand how powerful word of mouth can be as well, don't you? It didn't take long for word of the miracle performing child of God to spread. Travellers from faraway lands came to our village, all in search of aid. Driven by a mixture of elation and duty, I gave my blessings unto every pilgrim who sought them. I gave them my blood, yes. My young hands were perpetually covered in wounds. Running out of skin on my fingers, I cut the back of my hands, my palms, and my wrists. Before long, they had turned into swollen, carved up black and red horrors, and so I kept them wrapped in cloth at all times. The only time I uncovered them was to give blood to those who sought it. My lacerated hands were, in no uncertain terms, gruesome and unsightly, but the believers who came to see me all wept at my selfless sacrifice, and so I came to cherish those wounds. There were some for whom no miracle took place, but whenever that would happen, the villagers would come out and say, "The daughter of God is not to blame, you simply lack sufficient faith." Thus, such incidents had no negative effect on my reputation as a saint. For 3 years I continued doling out blessings. One day, while I was offering a prayer, my mother let slip her discontent. "Why must you hand out miracles for nothing? Why must you give strangers grace? We should be getting compensated. We deserve remuneration. If we charged us a little bit for each blessing, we could be living so much more comfortably." I was dumbfounded. How could the mother of a saint say such things? Helping people was my divine calling, and she expected payment? I nearly wept, hearing my mother preoccupied with such worldly desires. So I explained to her how important this work was. I taught her that we were not to covet material wealth, that we were to dedicate our lives to the service of our fellow man. "You're right, my dear saint," she said, understanding, and I believed her. I fell asleep that night convinced she truly understood and that there would be no more problems. But the next day, I was sold off. Men I had never seen before carried me by the arms and tossed me into a carriage. Confused and panicked, I stuck my head out, searching for my mother. Off in the shadow of the house, I saw her with a strange man, accepting a bag of coins. The carriage rocked back and forth as it rolled along a dirt road. Shaking and bouncing within it, I struggled with overwhelming grief and despair. It was, perhaps, the first time in my life I had felt such a powerful emotion. I didn't know what I felt so much despair over, though. Obviously, it was over my present predicament, but I wasn't sure what about it hurt the most. Was it that I had been pawned off like a slave? Was it that my mother, the mother of a saint, had been blinded by money? Was it that the villagers had watched in silence as a disciple of the Lord was thrown into a carriage? Or was it that I, daughter of God, lamented my misfortune like a mortal? I decided it was a trial. My father, the Lord God, was testing my worthiness of being his daughter. So I choked back my urge to cry and sat there in silent contemplation. For almost 3 weeks I was rocked around in the carriage. The coachman treated me well enough, but I'm certain it was only because he didn't want his precious cargo dying before he could deliver it. He did not, by any means, think me the child of God. The third week, the carriage arrived at a city. It was much larger than the village I'd grown up in, with many, many more people crowding the streets. Something about them felt different too. They all spoke in a tongue foreign to me, which is when I realised I was far, far away from home. I was delivered to the lavishly decorated mansion of the region's lord. Brightly coloured flowers bloomed wildly in the gardens as guests laughed and ate extravagant meals. And in addition to them, there were probably 4 times as many slaves moving about the grounds. Getting a range of looks from everyone we passed, from smartly dressed men to scrawny, emaciated servants, I was led to the lord's chambers. The lord was surrounded by beautiful women. Perhaps they were slaves, or perhaps they were prostitutes. I couldn't tell. Among them were some girls hardly older than me. They all wore thin swathes of cloth.
For context, by the way, it's mentioned earlier in the story that Morgana is, by modern day standards, a child. I think it's confirmed later that she's like 12, I think.
Right.
And she might be younger at this point because this is before a bunch of stuff happens, so I think she might be younger at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So when she's saying girls barely older than her, she's talking preteens.
Barely covering themselves at all. The Lord looked me up and down, and with a laugh he said, "Welcome."
Sorry, do you want to do this?
I can do the other lines that aren't you so you have a break.
Thank you.
Welcome, daughter of God. You'll be performing miracles for me now. Miracles are not something to be performed for a single person's benefit. Shit.
Oh.
Shit.
Oops.
Shit.
Miracles are not something to be performed for one single person's benefit, I replied, shocked and furious that he had said something so utterly blasphemous. In response, he said,
I bought you. You are my property. You have no right to an opinion.
But I would not have any of it. I entreated him to give up his indulgent lifestyle and devote himself to the service of the Lord. But the more I pleaded, the deeper the creases on his face grew. Thinking back on it now, it was hardly surprising. A 9-year-old girl was scolding the most powerful man in the region.
Well, there you go. She was 9.
9, yeah. So, like I said, I know that at the time of her death, she's 12-ish. Ish, because she, there's a part where she can't account for the passage of time properly. So she's 12-ish when she dies. But I state what I stated to make it a point that not only is this guy a scumbag, but he is a mega fucking scumbag.
Mm-hmm.
So, just to put that out there, that this guy sucks fucking eggs.
Mm-hmm. I believed it was my duty, and that I was only doing what was right, but he surely saw it as incredible arrogance. So the Lord forced his will upon me. He bound my hands and feet and cut me without my permission, filling a goblet with my blood and passing it around to his guests.
A saint's blood and good fortune to all! Honk.
Honk.
Sorry, a car honked when I said that. It was like, the car was like, here, honk!
That was when I realised the Lord was only interested in the approval of others. He revelled in their envy as he pranced about, showing off his curious new toy, me. He didn't need my miracles. Neither he nor any of his guests were afflicted with the disease or misfortune. They were all richly blessed. Every time he threw a banquet, he drained me of my blood. It became nearly impossible to find a spot on either of my arms that wasn't a swollen reddish-black gash. And soon, because my arms weren't providing enough blood for him, the cutting spread to my legs. I lived in a haze of half-consciousness. Honestly, I'm amazed it didn't kill me, though perhaps the Lord was simply taking care not to take more than my body could spare. Watching the wealthy partygoers laugh and sip my blood through bleary eyes, another wave of despair came over me. My miracles, my blood, were not meant to be an appetizer at a feast. They were meant for the sick and the poor. But despite my wishes, the Lord persisted to squeeze me dry day in and day out for his own enjoyment. For a while I was convinced that it was all God's test, that it was part of his plan for me, his daughter, that if I could make it through this trial, I would be allowed to go back to helping people. That man would celebrate my success, envy me, worship me, that sinners would face punishment, that divine retribution would be delivered unto all who had wronged me, a saint. With each passing day my spirit grew more twisted. Would anyone have believed that scarred and bloody devil tied up on the floor in the banquet hall was a saint? Unlikely. There was no charitable gathering but an unholy Sabbath. Perhaps it was caused by my corrupted spirit. Perhaps it was my heart's way of crying for help. Or perhaps it was the devil giving me my witch's mark. But no matter what the cause, during one of the bloody banquets I underwent a transformation. I was half-conscious as usual when one of the guests pointed at me and shouted something. His face went pale as if he were afraid, which I found quite curious. The Lord then approached me, grabbing me by the hair and lifting my head. He yelled something, but I was too far gone to be able to make out what he was saying. Suddenly, I found myself released from my bonds, but my body had grown so weak from being tied up for so long, I didn't have the strength to hold myself up, and so I collapsed to the floor. I was still trying to figure out what was happening when the Lord drew a sword, raising it high above his head. His words in that moment reached me with perfect clarity.
You're a damn witch wearing a saint's skin.
A witch? Why was he calling me a witch? I was the holy daughter of God. I had certainly never made a pact with the devil. What could have given him that idea? What was in store for me now? Had God performed some kind of miracle for him? Dozens of thoughts and questions floated through my mind as death hung over me. I couldn't comprehend anything, and so I didn't feel any fear or anger at my impending death. I was simply curious. What had happened to me? But before I had the chance to find that answer, the Lord swung down his blade.
Without warning, without any time to prepare, the darkness drains away. And a second later, I crash into the stairs hard. Right at my ear, I can hear of the river of blood. The world fades in and out of view, giving way to very real images of a past I never lived. I can practically feel the fire in the eyes of the mad blood banquet's guests. My vision distorts, I can't regain my focus. Whose blood is this streaming down the stairs? Is it hers? Is it mine? Who am I? A saint? A witch? Is what I'm seeing through the lens of clarity or madness? Wait, no. I am not her. I am Michael, no one else.
It hurts, doesn't it? It's hard to breathe. Your chest is on fire, your vision is bloody. It's dark, it's lonely, it's scary. It's frustrating, it's disheartening, it's exasperating, isn't it? What you're feeling is exactly the pain I felt.
I reach my hand out in a plea for help, which is when I see something I can hardly believe. Both of my arms are covered in gashes, blood flowing from them without end. The raw flesh beneath my skin has been exposed to the open air. All I can bring myself to do is scream. That pain, or horrible past, is doing everything in its power to break me. That 9-year-old girl's sickening experiences are twisting and constricting and crushing me. Why is this
happening to you? Are you really that slow, my dear? You're empathizing with my pain. You're just that kind-hearted, Michael. You said you wouldn't give up, didn't you? That you would make your way to me. Then surely this won't be enough to do you in.
Of course it won't. Mustering up every last bit of strength that I can, I begin crawling up the stairs. The Red River beats against my open wounds, stinging painfully. The simple act of lifting an arm or a leg is almost unbearably agonizing. The blood dripping from my lacerated arms mixes with the blood already soaking the tower. So this is the pain Morgana suffered? Do you despise everyone, Morgana? Did your resentment at your mother's betrayal, at the people who came seeking your blood, at the Lord who took your life, turn you into a hatred for all mankind?
Your perception of me is still incorrect, Michael. My grudge is only against the select few. Think about it, my dear. Of the thousands, millions, billions of people living on this planet, my world is comprised of but a minuscule fraction of that. Hatred for all mankind? No, what I feel is not nearly so nebulous. Although, if I had died still believing I was a saint, maybe I wouldn't have such a well-defined mission.
Are you saying the Lord didn't kill you?
Oh my, did you actually think that was the end of my tale? Despite all your big talk, you're afraid of having to suffer through any more of that, aren't you? But you're the one who said you wouldn't give in. So go on, know my pain, without losing your mind.
Ugh. Once again, my surroundings crumble. I have no say. I have no chance to object before I am dragged back to that repulsive banquet. I reach out, stretching my hand as far as it'll reach, but all I can grab is darkness. My bloody body sinks back into the abyss. Oh my god. The pain becomes more than just a memory, eroding away at my consciousness. Eroding! You're a damned witch wearing a saint's skin.
Maybe if I had died then, I wouldn't have become the witch you know now. But that's all conjecture. Theorizing about what could have happened is an exercise in futility. But no, I did not die that day. Brought together by constant mistreatment, the Lord's slaves chose that moment to start their revolt. When he swung down his blade, someone bumped into him, and it was knocked off his course. I didn't have the strength to get to my feet, so I simply watched the chaos unfold before my hazy eyes. It never even occurred to me that I should try to escape. At some point during the riot, a young man, one of the slaves, grabbed me by my bloody limp arm and led me out of the Lord's manor. The young man brought me to a slum, a place where the people banded together in their hardship, barely scraping together enough to eat every day, let alone pay the taxes demanded of them. By the time we had arrived at a small brothel located a ways into the slum, the fog was starting to clear from my mind. I knew where we were, and to the feeling the gazes of those scantily clad women, I trembled. In a sense, that was possibly the most frightened I had ever been in my life, despite everything else I had been through. The idea that I had fallen so far I would have to become a prostitute scared me to death. After all, I was a saint, and saints were supposed to retain their purity. Spreading my legs for any man who gave me enough coins would shatter my very identity. As all that was going through my mind, I probably shouted no in protest, because the slave gave me an exasperated look and told me he hadn't brought me here to become a prostitute. He said he knew someone here, someone I could trust, and that she would give me a room. I had trouble believing him though. I couldn't trust the word of a prostitute, someone who valued money more than her own body. It was all a trap, I was sure. One day they would tell me I had to work. Nothing he said would convince me otherwise. Apparently sensing my mistrust, the slave gave me an apologetic frown and handed me a mirror, saying,
You
Even if I did, you couldn't get any work looking like that. I could not believe what I saw. That couldn't be my face. It had to be an illusion. There was no way. That was not the face of a saint. It couldn't be. It wasn't real. It wasn't possible. Patches of skin had fallen off my face, exposing the raw red flesh beneath. It looked quite similar to what had been done to my arms and legs, except my face had never been cut before. Looking at myself in the mirror, even I doubted my own sainthood. The thing in my reflection was a hellish abomination. It was the twisted face of a witch. And although I was shocked by what I saw, at the same time it answered several lingering questions. It explained why the Lord and his guests had panicked at the sight of me, and it also explained why he had said I was a witch wearing a saint's skin. Over the course of the dozens of banquets I participated in, my face must have mutated, twisted into this ugly, sickening, monstrous thing. The sight of what I had become sapped the last bit of willpower from me. Not because I was particularly fond of my face or thought myself especially beautiful, but because it crushed me to see everything saintly about me crumble away. Test from God or otherwise, I didn't have the strength left to attempt to overcome it. Deciding I would rather be dead than struggle any longer, I begged the slave to kill me. Taking one's own life was a sin. If I did that, I would not be able to return to my father's side, and I wanted to ask him why I had been put through such tribulation. But the young man refused. He said, completely missing my intention, that if I had persevered, good fortune would eventually find me. He said that if I lived on, I would eventually have a chance to get my pay back. I had no such worldly concerns though, but if no one would take my life, I had no choice but to live. I despised life at the brothel. The men who came to buy their services were disgusting buffoons, the kind of people who would think they could deceive God, and the women fawning over them were just as repulsive. That said, I had nowhere else to go, which meant I was forced to suffer that sickening place. But by the time a year or so had passed, my feelings about it had changed. The women of the brothel took good care of me, treating me like a sister. At first it was just irritating. I was a saint, and how could a saint have prostitutes for sisters? But over time I got to know them better, grew to appreciate their circumstances and hardships. Despite barely having enough money to keep food on the table, whenever they had a little to spare, they would use it to purchase medicine, ointments to apply to my arms, legs and face. And as a result of their generosity, my arms and legs started looking almost human, but nothing had any effect on my face. Occasionally, the slave would drop in to check on me. The other men thought me ghastly and wouldn't get anywhere near me, but he was different, and every time he visited, he would say, "One day, I'll show you the world." And to tell you the truth, I was beginning to grow attached to it all. My time at the brothel was probably, all things considered, one of the brighter chapters of my life. There I was neither saint nor witch, but an ordinary human girl. For the first time, I felt like my life had meaning beyond my assumed divine purpose. I was even beginning to feel kind of happy. And with each passing day, my intricable worldview was gaining a little flexibility. Perhaps I could perform miracles, but that didn't necessarily mean I had to be the daughter of God or a saint. Maybe I was just a regular person who happened to possess some unusual abilities. Ridiculous, isn't it? Despite coming to accept my humanity, I refused to let go of my miraculous powers. They were the last thing protecting what I thought of as myself. But to me at the time, it felt like a very dramatic change of heart.
My jaw hurts.
It's okay, it's okay. It's fine. When we eventually revisit this part of the tale, it won't be you doing most of the talking. I think it comes down to being mostly me.
I see.
3 years after the revolt at the Lord's Manor, I had my 12th birthday, for which they threw me a little dinner party. The women all pitched in to bake me treats, and the young slave man was there too. I was happy. I thought that if life could continue on like this, I was fine with not going back to being a saint. But for some reason, happiness always seems to slip away as soon as you've got your hands around it. No one sincerely wants to lose it, so why must they? I certainly didn't mind not being miserable. Let me tell you what happened that night. On the night of my birthday celebration, bandits attacked the brothel. Now, bandits were hardly a rarity in that time, so everyone was always on the lookout, and we never went out at night. They wouldn't stop at robbing you either. They were armed with blades and would frequently kill their targets if necessary. But cautious as we were helpless against the direct trade. The brothel fell into a panic, screams echoing in the night. The customers were carved up and left for dead. The women were bound and stowed away to be sold. My peaceful world shattered in an instant, and the next thing I knew, I was some slave trader's merchandise. I don't know what became of the prostitutes who cared for me, or the slaves that brought me to them. I assume the women were sold and the young man slaughtered. But regardless, I found myself being rocked around in the back of a carriage once more. The carriage was packed so tight you could barely see the floor, and it smelled like death. Sweat, urine, feces, every foul odour imaginable compressed into a tiny space. There were both men and women there, nearly all of them muttering or groaning or weeping. Everyone was young, ripe to be put to work. It didn't take me long to realise what fate awaited these people, and me. And when I did, I just sat there in silence. Then for the first time, I cried. I was experiencing, I believe, a very human emotion. I was sad, hurt that I had been taken away from a place where I was happy, from the women at the brothel and that young man. It crushed me. And no longer did I wonder why such a thing was happening to the Holy Daughter of God. Something about my tears must have seemed strange to him, because one man saw me and said,
"Why are you crying?"
He was a curious man. To start, he looked very different from anyone else. The colour of his skin, the length of his nose, the shape of his eyes, everything about him was new and unusual. Hesitantly, I replied, I'm sad because I didn't get the chance to show my gratitude to people very dear to me. The man fell silent, looking as though he was deep in thought. I had no idea why he had asked me that, but something about him made me uncomfortable, so I couldn't bring myself to ask. Several hours later, the man suddenly stood up. The guards had no patience for anyone stepping out of line, and they didn't look like they would hesitate to kill us either. So unsurprisingly, one at the back of the carriage drew his sword and pointed it at the man. What was surprising, though, was what happened next. The man, his hands shackled like the rest of us, leapt for the guard, slamming his fist into his face and stealing his sword. The entire carriage was in shock. The guards were too stunned to effectively react, so they were quickly cut down. And because the one-man uprising had taken place between cities, there was no one the slave traders could ask for help before they were slaughtered. In the blink of an eye, it was all over. And there was nothing human about what I had witnessed. If I had to describe it, I would say it was as though a wild beast had attacked. The man ruffled through the slave trader's clothes until he found the keys, which he brought to me, ordering I unshackle him. And so I did as he commanded. Once they had enough time to process what had happened, the would-be slaves applauded. Their wretched souls had been saved. And for a moment, I believed so too. When the man's hands were free, he rolled his shoulders a couple of times, made sure everything was in place, and then he began his massacre. Screams of agony filled the carriage as he ran his sword through the helpless men and women packed inside it. Blood and guts were splattered against every surface, and those who tried to escape did not get far before being mercilessly skewered. It was like a scene out of a nightmare. I was frozen in place, not out of fear, but because my mind had shut down. I couldn't make sense of what was happening, so my mind rejected it. And with my brain having given up, my body was no more than a lifeless puppet. In short order, all the slaves were dead, and I was sitting in a pool of blood staring at the man. He pointed his blade at me, and with a little smirk said,
"Why didn't you run?"
In turn, I asked him, why did you kill them? The smile vanished from his face, and after a few quiet moments of pondering, he replied,
"Because I felt like it."
And why haven't you killed me yet? I asked. To which he gave a curt,
"I don't know."
then withdrew his blade and wandered off into the distance. And then I was all alone, surrounded by corpses. I glanced down, and half of someone's face was looking back up at me.
wrapped in absolute darkness. Warm blood spilled onto my cheeks, my hair, my skin. Chunks of human flesh rained down upon me. Make it stop. Pitter patter, pitter patter. There was no end to the deluge. The smell of death fills the air. I'm struck with a wave of nausea so strong I can't hold back the contents of my stomach. But when my mouth opens to vomit, blood pours out of it. Let go of me! Dead bodies grab at my ankles, dragging me down. To where? Hell? Or to the mountain of corpses?
Now do you understand that there was a time, if but briefly, when I was happy, when I felt human emotions? But I wish I never had. If I had remained confined in my Daughter of God shell, then I doubt I would have felt so much terror at the sight of death.
I can't say anything in response. I can't form words. I feel what she experienced, the massacre she witnessed, the limp flesh piling up around her. Even more than twice her age, it's enough to drive me mad. The fact that a 12-year-old girl had to experience something so unspeakable devastates me.
Tell me, my dear, do you pity me? Do you sympathize with me? If you feel bad for me, then you'll remain with me. You'll feel my pain and my despair with me, won't you?
The witch's cackle echoes through a pile of bodies. There's not a speck of light, and hideous death lingers everywhere. Helpless to resist, I'm dragged down into a deep, dark ocean. An ocean of blood.
Now on with the story. I was at a complete loss for some time after that. I didn't want to return to the city because I knew that no one left would take me in. There was only the Lord who had bound me and drained me of my blood. So I wandered the roads, no destination in mind and nothing to defend myself with but the clothes on my back. Frankly, I'm rather surprised I wasn't attacked by bandits. After walking for days without food or water, my mind was hazy and my exhaustion at a peak. In the distance, I saw a lake. So driven by my thirst, I turned my unsteady feet towards the water, not caring that it took me off the main road. And it turned out that was the correct choice, because there was a small cottage beside the lake. Smoke rising from the chimney, telling me it wasn't abandoned. Out of sheer desperation, I knocked on the door. No one answered. The door wasn't locked, so I slowly, hesitantly pushed it open. And beyond it, I found an old woman sitting dead in a chair. The woman was a witch, by trade that is. It appeared she had a deep knowledge of medicinal herbs, using it to make an assortment of medicines. In her cabinets were dozens of small glass bottles containing dried powdered leaves and crushed berries, among other things. On the fire was a cauldron, liquid bubbling inside. The woman looked as though she was asleep. Presumably she had passed away of old age, for there was no sign bandits had been rooting through the cottage, and she had a look of absolute serenity on her face. Looking over at the woman's dead body, I didn't cross myself. I envied her. Dragging the woman's body by her feet, I dumped her into the lake. Do you think doing so makes me a bad person? Makes me unsaintly? Well, I didn't have anywhere else to go, and the owner of the cosy cottage was no longer of this world. There was no reason I couldn't fill her home in her stead, was there? I deserved to have somewhere I felt comfortable, after everything I'd been through, didn't I? And so I took up residence in the old witch's cottage, and remained there until my 16th year. By 16, a terrible cynicism had taken root in my heart. I had no trust for people. I shut them out, building high walls around myself. After such a tumultuous, bloody childhood, it was all I could do to protect myself. keep my young spirit from cracking. Nevertheless, travellers would, on occasion, pay the old witch's cottage a visit, seeking her medicines. Whenever someone arrived, I would cautiously crack the door open, telling them they could trade for whatever they wanted with food, never showing my face. One day, a young man showed up at the cottage.
My sister has fallen very ill and she desperately needs medicine.
He was very soft-spoken. There was a distinct kindness in his voice, which I thought unusual, curious. What kind of person could he be? What did he look like? What expressions did he make as he spoke? To satisfy that curiosity, I snuck a peek at him through the crack in the door. He was a handsome young man with flowing flaxen hair, and upon seeing me, he didn't flinch back in disgust. He smiled. According to him, his younger sister had fallen gravely ill, and though they had tried a number of remedies, she was still bedridden. The medicines I gave him, too, had no effect, but he persisted in his quest, visiting me again and again for new combinations to try. He wanted nothing more than to relieve even the slightest bit of his sister's suffering. And, moved by his dedication to his family, I too wanted to do anything I could to help. For the first time in years, my world encompassed more than my small cottage. When the young man came, he would not only ask for medicine, but to go on walks with me. He volunteered to spend time with me, despite my horrifying appearance.
It's not healthy to stay holed up inside all the time. You've got this beautiful lake right here. What do you say we take a little walk around the shoreline?
He said with a smile, taking me by the hand. We spoke as we circled the lakeside. His voice was always soft and pleasant, like a ray of light shining through a crack in the walls. When I was with him, I felt like I could be an actual person, an ordinary girl. He talked about his sister more than anything, and whenever he did, he was at his brightest and most melancholy. The young man had been a member of a noble house, but disputes over who was the rightful heir had forced him and his sister out. Shortly after that, his sister had fallen ill and was now bedridden.
I'll take anything at this point to make her better. I'll even take a miracle if I can get one.
That word, muttered beneath his breath, sparked my memory. I was a saint. My blood had healing properties. I had no reason to hesitate. Someone needed my help, and who deserved it more than this kind-hearted young man's sister? So I decided to tell him what I really was, that my blood had miraculous powers, that it had saved people, that the moment I had been born, the drought plaguing my village had come to an end, that I had been known as a saint, the daughter of God. I told him everything, and he believed it all. He led me to his house where a pale, sickly young girl lay in bed. She was a sweet little girl with the same flaxen hair as her brother, who looked like she would have been quite spirited before if it not for her ailment. It was touching to see the two siblings sitting there together, quietly holding each other. I would gladly give my blood for the two of them, and so I made a new cut on my arm, which had healed considerably thanks to the slave and the women of the brothel, and let the girl drink of my blood. Neither of them had any doubts about my sainthood, and because they believed, a miracle occurred. The flaxen-haired girl recovered enough to get out of her bed. I was extremely proud of myself. I felt like, for once, I had actually saved someone's life. The only issue was, she didn't make a complete recovery. For a few days after drinking my blood, she was in good health, but her condition quickly regressed. I was deeply perplexed by this. A miracle had undoubtedly taken place, but it was only temporary. Now though, I believe I can explain what happened. Her recovery was nothing more than a placebo effect caused by her faith. But that's something I couldn't have known at the time. We were all three perplexed, and we were all three disheartened. Nevertheless, I was prepared to give her my blood as many times as needed. Whenever her condition worsened, the young man came to request more, and never once did I turn him away. On the contrary, I enthusiastically offered her my services. Over time, though, the hope in his eyes began to fade. He asked me on fewer walks, and he seemed hesitant to look me in the eye. I assume it was out of discomfort, out of guilt, out of shame about asking for blood. But I don't think his concerns were for me, rather himself and his sister. As I mentioned earlier, blood was considered unclean in our time, and not only was I giving mine away, I was having a sister imbibe it. Looking at it that way, it would hardly be a surprise for him or anyone else to think what I was doing depraved. As time passed, the flaxen-haired young man seemed to grow more and more disturbed by me. That was what I got for opening up. That was what I got for letting his kind, warm light shine in on me. The moment things went bad, he pulled away. There were times when I thought I shouldn't have done anything in the first place, but regardless, I held fast to my original decision. I would put myself on the line for them. No one else. Just them. Even if he was afraid of me or had no interest in seeing me, I would continue offering her my blood, and I was firm in my resolve. One day, though, I received a new visitor. The young man was still the only one I would show my face to, the only guest I had let into my walls. So as usual, I took the man's request from behind the cottage door, but I could hardly believe my ears when he began speaking.
Are you the witch with the miracle blood?
First, how did he know my blood had powers? Second, why had he called me a witch and not a saint? Third, why did he sound like the man who had slaughtered the slave carriage? I told the man he had to leave, that I would not be opening the door for any reason. In response, he said,
I am in need of your blood. Could you not spare a little?
my blood was for the sick and needy. I would never spare a drop for a murderer like him. And I told the man exactly that, demanding he leave. All I could think about was the pile of bodies, the fountain of blood, the man drenched in crimson wearing a ghastly smirk. I trembled behind the door, fearing he may go on another such rampage. But instead, he gave a simple,
As you say.
and went on his way. I let out a deep sigh of relief, which is when I realised tears were rolling down both my cheeks, like an ordinary girl. 3 days later, the flaxen-haired boy showed up at my cottage.
I'm sorry for being so distant lately. I want to talk things over.
Those two sentences were like a light shining from above. I wanted to talk to him too. I wanted to take a walk around the lake and listen to him talk about nothing. I wanted to experience the warmth of his world once more. And I wanted to tell him about the terrible man who had been there a few days earlier, about how scared I had been. I wanted him to tell me it would be all right. I want to talk to you too, I said, opening the door without a second thought. The light of the sun was so bright all I could make out was his silhouette. I couldn't see the look on his face, or the look in his eyes. A gentle breeze blew past, and my mind froze. How could this be happening? What did it mean? Why? How? What was that man doing, standing behind him? Why was he carrying a sword? Why was he coming into my house? And why did he swing it down, severing my arm? I was in a daze. I couldn't make sense of anything. I didn't want to. My left arm fell to the floor before I even knew what was happening, and then my legs gave out. The pain, searing and unbearable, came a few moments later, as I was lying in an ever-expanding pool of my own blood. I did something then that I hadn't done before, that I had resisted doing no matter how much blood the Lord had stolen from me. I screamed. It was a hideous, visceral noise, a sound that I had never thought a saint could make. The same ear-splitting howl that the slaves had made as the man had butchered them. I writhed, I wailed, I wept. I crawled across the floor through my own blood. I begged and I begged and I begged for my life. The man walked over, picking up my severed arm, and then shockingly, he tossed it to the kind-hearted young man, after which he said,
That's your share. Should last you long enough.
share? What did he mean by share? What was he talking about? Why had he given him my arm, and why had he taken it? Why was he talking like we knew each other? Why? Why? I had spared blood for him when he asked, hadn't I? So why was he doing this? Was cutting my arm off and stealing it easier on his conscience than simply asking? You understand how I felt, don't you? You can put yourself in my shoes, can't you? The young man refused to look me in the eye. Holding my bloody arm in his trembling hands, he fled from the cottage as quickly as his legs would allow. The man then walked over and picked me up. I had neither the strength nor willpower to resist. Holding me in his arms, he began to speak, telling me things I didn't want to know, things I didn't want to hear, but he didn't care.
Nothing personal. I just need your blood. Without it, she'll lose her church.
Don't take it personally. Tell me, is there anyone in this world who wouldn't feel a bit of spite after being put through such torture? How was I supposed to let that slide? No one's that much of a saint. My trust had been betrayed and I was supposed to turn the other cheek. A man had barged into my home, uninvited, and cut off my arm, and I was supposed to smile and take it? Is there anyone anywhere who doesn't even feel the slightest bit of hatred ever? Is there anyone in this world who could just laugh and brush this off, this level of abuse? Tell me, is there? How could I not hold a grudge? How could I not despise them? How could I possibly forgive them? Tell me, please. Tell me, how could I?
She needs the money. I need some way of getting enough money to keep her church running. So the Lord made me an offer. If I brought him the witch with the miracle blood, he would finance a whole new church for her.
The Lord? Why him again? Why couldn't he leave me alone? After trying to kill me during one of his blood Sabbaths, why was he after my blood once more? Had he learned it really did have miraculous powers and decided he wanted me back?
You get to be the sacrifice, to keep her church from collapsing, to keep her world from collapsing.
Sacrifice? Excuse me, what? And what's all this about keeping her church from collapsing? You murdered a carriage full of innocent people, and you're trying to protect a church? You? Are you out of your mind? Churches are where people go to commune with God, to speak with my Father. How dare you soil those sanctified grounds with your filthy hands, you beast? It's insulting, sacrilegious, repulsive. Just what do you think we are?
So don't take it personally, witch.
I'm not a witch. I'm a saint. I was a saint. My blood exists to do the Lord's work, not to satisfy the avarice of men. Why is this happening to me? The man brought me back to the city, but instead of taking me to the Lord's manor, he brought me to a church on the city's outskirts. Though to be honest, it looked more like an estate than a church. The church also served as a hospital, offering free care to less fortunate children, the poor, and the infirm. That was when I learned why he had said they needed money. The owner of the church offered unconditional assistance to anyone who came. Even when food and supplies ran low, they would ration their own in order to keep helping others. As a result, the church was perpetually on the verge of collapse. The church was run by a woman, something exceedingly rare for the time. There were no priests. All management was handled by a single nun who everyone referred to as the saintess. I was the saint. Why was this woman who didn't have the ability to perform miracles being worshipped like she did? Why did the people of the city idolize her? Why were their smiles all directed at her? Why was I not in her place? The man carried me to the top of the observation tower. It was there that I had my reunion with the Lord. I was to spill my blood for the people of the city, but also for the Lord's profit. He was not offering free aid, but selling it as a medicine. He claimed it was a miracle elixir, telling no one that it was actually my blood. It was mixed with a beautiful red wine, and drinking it would cure you of any ailment. If they knew it was actually the blood of a witch, they would think it unclean. They would fear it. I remained imprisoned for a long, long time. In the beginning, the swordsman guarded me, though before long the flaxen-haired young man showed up as well. Presumably one severed arm wasn't enough to keep his sister healthy for long. And listening to their conversations, I learned that To ensure no one else could get in, the observation tower was sealed with 3 locks. The Lord, the swordsman, and the young man each held one of the keys. I was their secret, locked away in the tower for them to drain of blood away from wandering eyes. Time went on, and I grew progressively weaker. I lost the will to eat and the will to live. My only view from the tower was the clouds through a window high up on the wall. Occasionally a pigeon would fly in, sometimes a butterfly, and I would glare in envy as it fluttered around, free to come and go as it pleased. And soon it was spring. Every spring the church held a festival to pray for the coming year's harvest and the people's well-being. I could hear the bustle from far below through the window as everyone rushed to prepare. I heard the flaxen-haired girl's voice, who had regained her health drinking my blood. I heard her brother's voice, who had betrayed me. I heard the nun's voice, who played saint in my stead. I heard the barbaric swordsman's voice, who had chopped off my arm. And I heard the Lord's voice, the root of all my suffering. I heard people praising the saintess, though I, the true saint, was locked in the tower. I heard people thanking the Lord for his generous donations in miracle medicine, though it had all come from me. Propped up on my suffering, they cheered and clinked glasses of my bloody wine. Those merry, peaceful, cheerful, spirited sinners' voices resounded in my tower. And at noon on the day of the festival, the church bell tolled. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and with the 12th chime, I died. As the bell's last pealing faded into silence, the tower door swung open. Standing on the other side of it were 3 men. They must have wanted to drain a little more from me to use in the feast, but they arrived at the worst possible moment. The flaxen-haired young man was the first to express his consternation.
Why? I never wanted her to die. Was she not eating?
The Lord gave my corpse a casual glance and said stone-faced,
Seal the tower off. Understood? No one finds out about this.
How can you be so calm? Don't you understand what you've done?
Pinning the blame on me. How nice it must be to be able to distort reality with panic.
The swordsman, who had been silently observing the Lord and the boy conversing, interjected.
You're just as guilty as any of us.
Not only did they not mourn my death, they argued over whose fault it was. There was no regret, no remorse. The young man muttered absent-mindedly.
I never wanted her to die.
What did his intentions matter, though? It was his betrayal that had ultimately tethered me to this mansion. But the fact they didn't grieve my death, and instead squabbled amongst themselves like filthy rats, was the final straw. How could I not despise them? I don't believe I actually had the power to perform miracles when I was alive. It was all faith, the illusion of belief. I was neither a saint nor a witch. The blood wine was only effective because people placed their faith in the other saintess. I was only ever human, but then, in that moment, an actual miracle occurred. My Father bestowed upon me his power. Or perhaps it was the devil who lent me his strength. I was looking down upon my own dead body, my own wretched self. There was nothing beautiful about the pile of bones I had become. I could almost smell the rotting flesh. That was once a saint? I laughed at the thought. It was absurd, ridiculous, and infuriating. They would pay. Those who had cast me into this hell, who had mocked me, who had done this to me, who had made a witch out of me. Hatred coursed through me. Revulsion at everyone on these grounds still smiling. They would know just whose dead shoulders their little party was resting upon. If they wanted so badly to call me a witch, then a witch I would be. I would kill them, every last one of them, place a curse on their souls. And so I made my wish. Most people might consider it a curse, but to me it was most certainly a wish. And my father, or maybe the devil, granted that wish. From the garden, There rose a scream. The flaxen-haired young man knew that voice better than anyone. He went deathly pale, darting down the spiral staircase until he reached a window. A young girl was on her knees, vomiting blood in the grass. The young man let out a yelp as he descended the remainder of the staircase. As soon as he reached the garden, he lifted the girl in his arms, but she had already perished. Realizing this, he cried to the heavens, saying the one thing he should have kept to himself.
The witch killed her. The blood of the witch killed my sister. That wine you're drinking is no medicine. It's the blood of the witch. You're all drinking witch blood.
Crushed by the loss of his only family, the young man picked up a silver fork and plunged it into his own throat, ending his life. Naturally, there was an uproar. Goblets of wine crashed against the earth in rampant succession, as the people holding them fell to the ground and vomited or convulsed. The nun was the first target of their outrage. What she had claimed to be medicine had turned out to be blood, an unclean substance. The blood of a witch, no less. A servant of the church, a servant of the Lord, had given her followers blood to drink. And at this, their indignation surged uncontrollably. The people surrounded her, tying her up and throwing her to the ground. As they prepared to inflict righteous justice upon her, the swordsman rode down the stairs and into the garden, plunging his blade into anyone standing near the nun. The cries of agony ringing through the church grounds were ear-splitting. It was no longer a place of God, but hell on earth. Hell built up by the hands of man. Hell painted red with the blood of their brothers. The people armed themselves with anything they could find and went after the man. As much of a beast as he may have been, he stood little chance against such numbers. It is the fate of a beast to be exterminated by those he terrorizes, and once he was gone, the nun had no one left to protect her. She too was consumed by their frenzy. All that remained was an inextinguishable inferno, hysteria and despair, madness and outrage, and no outlet for it. It was a revolt that made the slaves' uprising at the Lord's Manor look like a game. Eventually their rage found a new target, the Lord. It was only natural, for he was the true villain. He was the one who had given money and the witch's blood to the church. He was the one who had profited off of it. And above all, people often resented those who stood above them, particularly in times of unrest. The city resounded with cries for the Lord's head, and he looked down upon it all from the safety of the observation tower. He could do nothing but watch as his domain burned. I can only imagine how painful that must have been. But before long, having seemingly made his peace, he began descending the spiral staircase. He opened the door at the bottom, revealing himself to his people. But before the door had swung all the way open, before he had a chance to say his final words, someone ran a blade through his chest. With that, the raging furor mostly settled down, but it was hardly the end of the destruction. Mere days later, a plague befell the city. Dreadful black spots covered the flesh of the infected. They writhed in pain, screaming and vomiting blood. Ghastly howls echoed through the streets as the whole city had been possessed. It became a cursed land. In their diseased haze, the people muttered again and again,
"We've been cursed by the witch."
In less than a week, the entire city was dead. My body was left abandoned at the top of the observation tower, and as if to seal away the curse, in their final days, the people shuttered all the windows, wrapping the house in darkness. It's possible that was no miracle either. You could easily explain what happened to them. Locked away for so long in that dirty tower, maybe I caught some kind of disease. And then when the people drank my blood, they too were infected. Hardly anything out of the ordinary about that. The first to die, the girl, had already been ill. Her body merely chose the worst possible time to yield to her ailment. That was all that had happened. Indeed, it was nothing more than a fluke, an improbable stroke of luck, an unbelievably unfortunate accident for the city and those three men, and an indescribably fortunate accident for myself. But I wish to believe it was a miracle, that even if my blood didn't have healing properties, and even if I wasn't a saint, my wish, my curse, was what caused that uprising. That was my miracle, granted to me by God or the devil. I choose to believe that, and that my miracle took on its true form thereafter. My cousin brought death upon the three men, but for whatever reason, my rancor was far from sated. They had died. So what? Death is but a transient agony. It's nothing compared to what I went through. So I made my next wish. I wished for their reconstruction. I wished eternal suffering on their souls. I wished to trap them in a never-ending cycle of pain and hatred. This was my wish for the flaxen-haired young man. He treasured his dear sister, and he desired a quiet life. So I wished for him to have just that. And I wished for his dearly beloved sister to love him more than anything in the world, for his world to be destroyed by a love gone too far. This was my wish for the beast-like man. He was conscious of his tendency for violence, and yet he yearned to be more human. So I had his inner beast toned up just a little. I saw to it that he would never be human, so he would never have the peace he so desired. My wish for the Lord was more straightforward. He seemed to have great affection for wealth and authority, so I assured those were the only things he could ever have. Who needs love or friendship when you can be drowning in power? Once he had lost everything, his solitude would be his only companion. Wishes can come true. As long as you always hold fast, never stop wishing, never surrender, they can come true. Eternal suffering on all their souls, an endless cycle of reconstruction and unavoidable tragedy. Tell me, my dear, do you sympathize with me? Will you curse them with me? Will you take my hand and revile them with me?
Face this chapter, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's definitely the worst thing that's happened to anyone from any of the doors we've been through, especially now that we know why the other things have happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because, frankly, I think they all deserved it.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying I would wish it upon them. I genuinely don't like to wish ill will upon people. It's something that really turns my insides out.
Yeah.
But I definitely don't blame her. Which is why when you guys were, you in the chat were joking about it being like Junko, I'm like,
Yeah.
no, Morgana has a reason.
Morgana has a reason.
Morgana has a pretty good fucking reason. Because, like, the whole thing was just glazed over in the space of, an hour and a half?
Yeah.
But for her, it was an entire almost 13 years of suffering.
Yeah.
And the last year of it was entirely those three people.
Yeah.
And even if you go back the way, I figure everyone here has probably figured out which, the three men linked to each person.
Yeah.
There's one bit that might have been a little bit subtle, but you'll find out later if you haven't already gotten it. But it traces back much further than just the tower.
Uh-huh.
Because all of the slaves being killed and traumatizing the fuck out of her. And again, a lot of the people that she was in there with, they were friends that she had made.
Yeah.
They were her family. That was all Yukimasa.
Yeah.
And the fact that she ends up in the tower at all is entirely Mel, because he's the one who blabs. He can't keep her secret.
Yeah.
She's doing him what she believes and what he believes to be a horribly selfless thing. She is doing something that is so selfless,
Yeah.
and he believes it to be selfless, but he is still eager to turn her over so that he can guarantee that the source of that blood's not going to dry up.
Yeah.
And then, there's the Lord who's in it for the money.
Yeah.
And if he hadn't put out the edict for her, then she wouldn't have been in the tower.
Yeah.
Also, the swordsman had absolutely no need to cut her arm off. There was no need for that.
No, that was quite extreme.
It was incredibly extreme. But I don't think that everyone deserved what happened necessarily, but the three men did.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Nelly and the nun, not really.
No.
I don't think they deserved what happened to them because, Nelly knew about the blood thing, but she didn't know that her brother had sold this girl off.
Oh.
And the nun, based on her reaction, did not appear to know about any of it.
No.
She just seemed to be aware of the fact that she was providing people with a medicine that seemed to be curing them, and she thought she was doing something that was good.
Yeah.
So it's entirely on the heads of those three men.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and her mom.
Yeah.
So she had very much a reason to curse these men like she did. Very much a reason to want to see them suffer, because that's all they did to her.
Yeah.
And I do agree with what she said about how it's so awful when you go from a place of suffering to finally finding happiness to finding suffering again.
Yeah.
It's almost less cruel to never have found happiness in the first place.
Yeah.
Because at least when you're just constantly suffering, you don't know that there's anything better out there.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't have that comparison that you can draw. But if you rapidly go from horrible suffering to happiness to horrible suffering, you have the pain of knowing exactly what you're missing out on.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of there's a saying, and I cannot remember exactly how it goes, but it sums up to basically say, if you've never known a life of luxury, you're not going to mind a life of poverty, because poverty is all you've known. So for you, at least you've got something. You may not have as much as you need, you may not have as much as you might want, but at least you've got enough to get by.
Yeah.
Whereas a person who has known luxury and then suddenly knows poverty is in a constant state of agony, because they've known what it's like to be comfortable.
Yeah.
And they suffer all the more for it when they're not. So, there's just a tad more of the salvage, but the salvage is one of the shorter parts of the game. The maid's door and the salvage, I think, are the two shortest bits.
Yeah.
So, would you like to continue?
Yes.
Alright. Excuse me. This time, when my body crashes into the tower's stairs, I am unable to make a noise. The obstruction is less mental and more physical. The excruciating pain. It's so intense I can't even eke out a scream. My vision is distorted, my mind thick with fog. I feel like I'll fall into a bottomless pit if I loosen my grip on the consciousness that I grip even lightly. Through the haze, I see my own severed left arm, reflected in a pool of blood. I see my face, large chunks of flesh peeled off.
Look at you, trying to crawl up those stairs like a worm. How pathetic. It's like I'm looking at my old self.
Actually, sorry, you do this. You do the Sachiko voice for Morgana, so it's reminded me of something.
Uh-huh.
We got a tier list, a slow tier list of the villain women in the games that we're playing, and so like right now, from least bad to most bad, I would say it's Morgana, Sachiko, Junko.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like there's like a tiny gap, just a tiny gap between Morgana and Sachiko, and then there's this big fucking gap.
Yeah.
Between Sachiko and Junko.
Yeah.
Holy shit, is it a gap?
Yeah.
I can barely form a coherent thought. I can't lament her inhuman fate. I can't mourn for her, or be shocked by the revelation about the three men and her history with them. Pain. It fills every corner of my mind. Every nook and cranny of my body.
You figured it out by now, haven't you, my dear? You'll never make it to me. It's not possible. But it's not your fault. It's not because you're weak. There's simply no one who can bear this pain. You're allowed to give up. To rest. There's nothing wrong with that. The pain, the crushing weight, it's miserable, isn't it? But all you have to do is turn back, and it'll all go away.
The witch whispers her sweet temptations. I'm passing the yawns around, don't mind me.
Fucking. You've put in a fine effort. There's no shame at all in throwing in the towel. Fucking keep it to yourself.
Her voice is soft, gentle, pleasant, saccharine.
Concede defeat.
If I do, it'll all go away. The searing pain spreading from the stump of my left arm. The sensation of being perpetually drained of my blood. The miserable solitude of staring at a door that never opens. The laughter I can hear through the window. My miserable wailing and this maddening hatred. I can end it all.
That's right. It'll all be over. You have the power to make it stop.
Make it stop. No! I can't let that happen. No, I have to get her back at my side. I'll do anything to take her back, even if it means I ended up 1,000 tiny scraps of meat. I will not give up on her for any reason. Ugh, you know I'm hungry because I heard 1,000 tiny scraps of meat, and I'm like,
1,000 tiny scraps of meat.
num. I'm like, can I get that with a little bit of soy sauce, a little bit of garlic, just a little bit. Here's a little bit of rosemary on top, just a little bit sesame oil, just a little sesame seeds right on top, seared to perfection.
Exactly, non-salad left beef.
That's exactly where my mind went. I was sitting there in my mind watching me fry up the honey soy beef belly, like, 1,000 tiny scraps of meat. I'm so fucking hungry.
Oh. There.
Why?
Don't, will you?
Why do you
Such
give
a
me these
beautiful
yawns?
resolve. What?
Why do you give me the yawns?
'Cause I don't want it.
I don't want it either. Son, take them away.
Take away the yawns, please.
No, Nagito can have them. He's eating. He can take them. Take them.
Take them, Nagito.
Oh, he's passed the fuck out. He looks like a drunk.
No. Willing to sacrifice yourself to save the girl.
I just had non-salad love beef, so that's the thing. I have to wait. We have an allocated time per week where I'm allowed my non-salad left beefs. We literally spend no other fun monies, so I can have my non-salad left beefs. It's my one reprieve, and I cannot have it until next week. Like I got my paycheck in, and I was like, ooh, you know, what if I just go again? And I'm like, no, I can't. Have to behave and pay off my medical bills like a responsible adult. Ahem.
Like a hero of legend. Or maybe a fairy tale prince.
Where? Link's where? What? Link? Where?
What?
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 Link is the guy from Legend of Zelda. He's the hero of Legend.
Oh.
So what? Link? Where? What?
Where?
No. I am no hero and I am no prince. I'm a human, an ordinary man. Lonk. I don't have any extraordinary potential. I'm not a courageous leader or a charismatic general.
You son of a bitch.
Amen. I'm just a regular man in love with a regular woman who refuses to lose her. I don't need any other accomplishments, only that. That's all I need. Because I'm just a regular man. My one act of resistance. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how much you cut me up. Nothing changes what I have to do. I have to take her back and set her free of this mansion. Nothing else. And never will I back down on that. Arms or no. As long as I can move, I must push forward. I must make my way to the woman who waited so long for me. Up to the top of the tower. Forward. Ever forward. Ever onward. I'm gonna keep chuckling at Lonk until it goes away. Dragging my bloody body, paying the pain no mind, I once more arrive at the top of the observation tower. I place my hand on the door, holding myself up with my lacerated right arm. Take a moment to catch my breath, and then lift my head. Gaze into the void and shout her name. Morgana! I pity you. I truly do. You were a saint shackled with an unfathomable fate, and for that I am enraged. As I felt your pain, as I watched your life, I too felt a burning hatred for those 3 men.
If you truly feel that way, then why can't you stay here with me? We're all dead anyway. We've reached our ends. Do you honestly think there's anything more for us? There isn't. The end is the end. So what do you say the 3 of us, me, you and Giselle, torture the 3 of them and everyone they cared about? Make them suffer here for all eternity in this house. And that way, you and Giselle can be together forever too.
That's not an option.
Why not?
Because hatred only brings you pain.
Huh. Oh, that's brilliant. You spouting stupid platitudes at me. I can't believe my ears. Save your nonsense moralizing about how hatred does you no good. I won't hear it. I'm doing just fine for myself, my dear. In fact, I've never been better. I feel wonderful.
Stretch. Stretch.
Did you think that would be enough to persuade me? Really? Oh, how disappointing. And here I thought you understood me.
Morgana.
Why don't you say what you really think? Go right on ahead, hate them as much as you want, but keep me and Giselle out of it. Why didn't you just say that?
I do feel bad, truthfully. For all the time we spent together, never once did I ask about your life. I was so focused on myself, and in the end I pushed you away.
That you did. You wanted to be with Giselle, so you pushed me out.
I wish I had asked you sooner.
It wouldn't have changed anything though. One puny man knowing what I went through would hardly be enough to erase the loathing I bear. It would have turned out to be the same regardless. There was nothing you could have done for me. There is nothing.
Still, I would like to apologize. Had I known what you carried in your heart, perhaps I could have chosen my words better. Instead of rejecting you, I could have chosen some other response. I cannot remain in this house, nor can I allow her to stay either. So I would like to apologize for both my past actions and my present.
Well, in that case, open the door, Michael.
I take another moment to catch my breath, and then I gather my strength into the hand on the door. Blood seeps from my fingertips, trickling down the rough surface. It reminds me of my death. I'm coming for you. I push open the door, praying that it will be the last. That beyond it lies light for Giselle, and if possible, that it might cast a bit of light into Morgana's heart as well. But, however, why am I in my bedroom? What I find beyond the door is the last thing I expect. Huh? As she appears from the shadows of my chambers, I can't conceal my surprise. Giselle? Is this another illusion, Morgana?
No, it's not. I'm the real me. Thank you for coming all the way here for me.
She's thanking me. So why isn't she smiling?
That was very kind and courageous of you, Michael. I'm deeply moved you would have such compassion not only for her, but for someone like me. But do you know what else you are? You're a worm.
What is it this time, Morgana?
What do you say we pull back the curtain, my dear?
What curtain?
There's one detail that hasn't yet come to light. This isn't your first return to the mansion, is it? You've been back numerous times. Each time not remembering her, and each time hurting her even more.
Ooh, guys, we have to figure out. Do we think that Michael is the white-haired girl? What do we think? Vote now on your phones.
Vote now on your phones.
What are you talking about?
What am I talking about? Oh, you know good and well, my dear. Or do you honestly believe that all the other pieces were in their rightful places, and you alone were some exception?
I never.
Sun says yes.
Okay, so we think. That's what we think.
Mm-hmm.
Spirit, what do you think?
I also think.
You also think?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather big think.
So wait, are you saying you think yes, like you agree with V, or do you think because you don't know?
I don't know.
You don't know.
But I agree with Sun anyway because
I do know, and I'm not gonna tell you what the answer is. Ha!
Uh,
Ha ha!
Tell me, how was it living in so many different eras, not knowing who you were, and playing with all the different men?
No, you're out of your mind. You make it sound like I was.
Not like, my dear. You are the white-haired girl. Oh.
Oh. Enough. How could anyone possibly confuse me with her?
To tell you the truth, I couldn't see you as anyone else. Your white hair, red eyes, porcelain skin, and your name. Tell me, what about you isn't the same?
We're not the same person. I'm a.
I saw the letter,
What?
the one you had hidden,
No.
and you didn't think that was worth mentioning?
No, Giselle, I didn't mean.
You're exactly right, my dear Giselle. He deceived you. He kept a very important secret from you. Despite showing up before you multiple times, he cast you aside again and again.
No, that wasn't me. I wasn't.
It all makes sense now. Nothing you ever did was for me.
Giselle, I.
Go on, Giselle. Tell him exactly how you feel. Michael?
Don't, please don't say it. Not that, please. I'm begging you.
You're...
Stop, please. Don't, Giselle.
not actually.
Please. Don't say it.
A man at all, are you?
Oh. Giselle, no.
Giselle.
Giselle, no. Giselle. No.
You're disgusting. You're the only one it could have been, my dear. The only one who could have been the white-haired girl.
The next moment, my whole world comes tumbling down. I could have borne anything. Losing my arm, having my face torn off. Any amount of pain, I could have handled it. For you, I could have done it. But this, hearing those words coming from your mouth, being rejected by you, that those words, they bury me alive, and you're the one person I never wanted to hear them from. Cryptic, no cry. Cryptic, no cry.
No cry, Cryptic.
Cryptic, no cry. Cryptic is cry. After my father Antonin passed, I wrote 2 letters, one to my brother and one to my mother. It was the first time I found the courage to face my mother, to open up to her. I wanted to show her who I was, convince her that I wasn't cursed, so I could be myself when I returned to the capital with Giselle. Dear Mother, there is something I wish to tell you, something that means a great deal to me. What?
I was giggling at no he means.
I'm actually about to ugly sob. We're like 5 fucking seconds from it.
His eyes are watery.
So I ask of you, please hear me out. And I ask you, please accept it. Mother, I no longer bear any resentment for my present lot in life. Nevertheless, I would ask you to concede one thing. That I was never cursed. That I was always your son. That I am Michael, not Michelle. I have found someone whom I care for dearly. A woman. And I love her with all of my heart. I would like to spend the rest of my life with her. I do not wish for much. Simply to have a quiet life with her. To go through our days together, man and woman. That is the one thing I want. Mother, I know you are aware that my body is no longer female. I am a man. My heart is male. And I ask of you to please accept that. I have no grudge with you. In fact, I am incredibly grateful to you for bringing me into this world with love, your dearest son. Shortly after sending that letter, I was killed. I'm dragged down, against my will, into the darkness. Beneath me spreads my own past. My door, the door I swore to never open. But despite all my efforts to resist, the door sucks me in. Into a world I never wanted to see again. A history I never wanted revealed. A past I never wanted anyone to see. Nonetheless, the door opens.
Cliffhanger!
That's not even me giving you a cliffhanger, man. That's where the chapter ends.
Are you okay?
I'm gonna have an ugly sob when the stream's over.
Okay. No!
I'm gonna need you to take care of the outro stuff. I also don't know if I can read anyone today. I do not have it in me to actually go and... Oh, it's fine. We actually don't have anyone to raid. Okay, that makes me feel slightly better.
Okay, cool. No! I know, son, I know.
This game gets me good. It's such a good game, but like, holy fuck, is it sad. And the bit that you guys are gonna see soon, the next door, I relate to so fucking heavily.
Yeah.
Spirit and I have actually had a conversation recently where we discussed that basically if I had been born any earlier than I was, the next door would have been exactly how my life would have gone down.
Yeah.
And I mean that with no exaggeration. I don't want to go into the specifics of it. You'll probably hear me rant about it whenever the next door comes. But it's... holy fuck.
Yeah.
It is so good, but it is so sad.
Mm-hmm.
But I appreciate the fuck out of this game. Like, it really helped me come to terms with a lot of my issues when I played it the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came through this door the first time, it was part of what helped me realize that there were people in my life that should not be there. And as much as it still took me years after that to finally shake them loose, it was kind of my first realization that I deserved better.
Mm-hmm.
So, This game means a great deal to me, and I'm glad that you guys come and see me play it. I'm going to let Spirit talk about our schedule for the week, because I cannot hold my voice together for much longer.
Okay.
So, go ahead, Spirit. Speak.
I am quickly checking the poll to see what people have decided. Okay, so tomorrow, my Google. Google's interrupting me. So it looks like the poll for tomorrow, what has won has been multiplayer games. Yeah, usually Thursdays are our Resident Evil day, but my computer is fucked. So I have to.
And insurance can't cover it, unfortunately.
Insurance won't cover it, and it's busted. So we had to send it away to get it fixed. I might get it back by the end of the week. I might not. They said it could take anywhere from a couple of days to about a week for them to get it fixed. So we can't do Resident Evil 6 tomorrow because I play that through my PC.
And we play together. So.
We play together or not at all. So it looks like multiplayer games has won the poll, so we will find something to play multiplayer tomorrow.
We could probably put up a second poll about what people want to see for multiplayer games.
Yes, another poll will go up. No worries. So when we find out what that will be, you'll also find out. Friday will be Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc. We will be doing the trial for Chapter 2.
Justice for Chihiro.
Justice for Chihiro. And I don't know what we're doing on Saturday.
I don't remember. I'm sorry. I'm in a state. I don't remember.
That's another one you'll find out when we do. It's fine. But yes. So Justice for baby.
We can do sporadic because we're doing social on Thursday.
Yes, that's true.
So more party hard, I guess. We're going back to the first game DLC.
Yes, we're gonna do the DLC for the first game. Yes. Tuesday will also be I don't know. It depends on when I get my computer back.
Yeah. It could be 3 days. It could be 2 weeks. We don't know.
Don't know. So we're gonna try and do our best to power through me not having my computer.
Stuff might just be a little touch and go.
Yeah. Eesh.
This is for BB.
Justice for baby. Yes, thank you, son. That is my channel. My channel has been dropped in the chat. I do.
We almost have to update your description. Almost.
Almost. Yes. I draw commissions. Sometimes I do doodles. I draw the plushie wall behind me. I will also be doing some work for things on this channel over on mine. So, you know.
Oh, that's another thing. His commissions are currently on hold. Unless you're one of the people where your commission was simple enough he can draw it on his phone. His commission, his ability to do commissions is on his computer.
Yeah.
So, I think there's one that was simple enough you're able to do it on your phone.
I have one that I've started doing on my phone.
But other ones will be on hold.
The other two, unfortunately, they are saved on my computer, which I do not have. So those ones are being put on hold.
We appreciate your understanding.
Yes, thank you for understanding, because it's pissing me off as much as it's pissing everyone else off.
I might be pissing him off more. He was sitting here today raging that he didn't have his computer because he wanted to draw so bad.
I finally had like the strong urge to go and draw, and I'm like, but everything is saved on my computer, damn it. So, you know, that's fun. But are you okay? Are you barely holding it together? Is it time to go?
Yeah.
It's
Keep
time
it creepy.
to go. Keep it weird.
And most importantly,
Stay
stay clear. Bye-bye.
Bye.